Aloha, everybody. I'm Annalisa Burgos here in the Hawaii News Now Digital Center. And joining us now is Representative Elijah Pierick, who represents various parts of Oahu. Let me get this straight. Royal Kunia, Village Park, Honouliuli, my bad, Ho'opili, and Waipahu.
And Westlock.
Okay, perfect. So those are your areas of purview. Tell us a little bit about the constituents in your district.
I'm grateful to serve the best people in our state, the best people in the world, residents that are descendants of those of the plantation, people who have just moved to the island for the first time, and also just transient people that maybe they were townies, but they want cheaper properties, so they come to Ewa. Ho'opili has new development there, so a variety of individuals, including retired military in Kunia.
And lots of interesting issues come out of that area, right? Would you Central Oahu, essentially? Yeah?
Central West.
Central West, okay. And tell us about some of the issues that you're hearing from your constituents and what you'll be talking about this legislative session.
Constituents that are important, issues that are important to them include housing, cost of living, crime, traffic, homelessness.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I was just going to ask, so because of those issues are so important, what kinds of legislative priorities do you have to kind of address those?
So bills that would address each of those issues, let's start with traffic. Instead of having a zipper lane only for the morning, we could have a zipper lane on the afternoon as well. We could also provide more lanes. I don't really support the rail. I know that the unions like the rail and that they're expanding the rail, but if you ask people in Maui and Kauai and Big Island, hey, do you guys like the rail? Why are they paying taxes towards a project they'll never use? So I don't support that. Even though I live in Ho'opili and there's 2 or 3 rail stations right next to my house that I could ride to the airport so conveniently, it's disproportionately serving the state. Everybody in Hawaii Kai and Kaneohe and North Shore, it doesn't service them, yet their property taxes go towards that. So other legislative ideas to reduce traffic besides the rail would include expanding the lanes or maybe expanding the bus system. Now, with regards to homelessness, I believe when you make goods cheaper, you make less homelessness. So most people choose the homeless route because they don't have enough money to rent a house or buy a mortgage. So they have to be homeless. So if you made rent cheaper, if you made mortgages cheaper, they have that option to go into housing easier. So how do you get those costs down? You could modify the Jones Act. The Jones Act basically makes goods more expensive to get here. So right now we have high construction costs, which will then make the cost of the house higher. If we can reduce the construction cost, we can reduce the housing cost. And so if we modify the Jones Act, we can get construction materials directly from Asia or elsewhere shipped to Oahu versus having to first go maybe to the West Coast, then to Oahu. Other things would be to eliminate general excise tax, switch to a sales tax, or just eliminate general excise tax in general, reduce state income tax, eliminate corporate income tax. These are all things that will help a business and the employees have a less overhead when they construct the house. Also, when they build a house, they sometimes have to go through a process where an organization in the government previews the land and says, are there any ancient Hawaiian burials? Are there bones there? That process can sometimes take 2 years before they give the approval for a new development to come in. Let's say when you switch ag land to residential areas. That process of waiting 2 years is very expensive because that construction company or the developer, they buy the property and they're waiting, and it costs money to wait to not have things being built there. So if we can reduce all those things, housing becomes cheaper, less homelessness is out there. So that's covering traffic, homelessness. Now let's talk about crime. Mm-hmm. We're almost 500 police officers short in the county. So if we can have more police officers, we can have more people there policing the streets, protecting the neighborhoods. We have a great community where people can call up the police and say, hey, I see something suspicious, I'm going to report it. That's excellent. But we don't have enough police officers to respond to all of the calls. If you call 911 right now, mm-hmm. It'll say, 911, what's your emergency? Is it emergency or not emergency? If you choose that not emergency option, sometimes you can be waiting 15 minutes. And that's a long time. Even if you choose the emergency option, sometimes it takes a while for somebody to pick up. And then once they do pick up, which they're very good employees, they'll dispatch an officer, and it can take multiple minutes, sometimes 15 minutes before the officer gets there, because Oahu is so big and there's so few police officers. So we need to have a culture shift at the Capitol and across the state to be pro-police, pro-blue, supporting our men in uniform. to want to join the police force, to want to join a respectable unit that is, lauded by the community, good pay raises, good retirement packages, so that we can max out our numbers for the police. So we talked about homelessness, we've
Yes.
talked about crime, we've talked about traffic. Now let's talk about education. If we implemented school choice in our state, that would be phenomenal. There's so many states out there that are implementing school choice, which is basically a voucher system. If you're a mom and you've got keiki and you want them to go to the best school possible, your kids right now represent about $16,000 in the Department of Education. So our state budget is about $20 billion, and the line item for the Department of Education is over $400 million, and divided up per student, it's like $16,000. So right now, maybe some people's parents have the basically the no option, that they have to have their kids in the public school near them if they're choosing the public school option. And if it's going to Campbell, Waipahu, or Kapolei, those schools in my area, they have like an 80% graduation rate. That's not awesome. We can increase that. We can make that better. The national average of graduation is not 80%. They're below average. So we're so thankful to the principals out there that are working hard, and the teachers. Great job. But we can do even better. And so when you create a spirit of competition or competitiveness amongst our education, people try harder. Because if you've got two teachers and they're competing for who gets the better, let's rephrase it this way. If you're the mom and you've got $16,000 and you can choose to put your kids in private school, homeschool, or public school, you might choose the option that's closest to you, the option that has the greatest GPA for your students, the safer schools, less crime, a variety of issues. And so when schools know that they're competing for your dollars to have the privilege of teaching your child, they usually perform better. So private schools already have that dynamic. They're competing for the dollars of the parents to bring in those students because they have certain programs or high GPAs or a high college high college entrance rate. So if we can implement that spirit in the Department of Education, I think we're going to have a win there. Instead of having Kaiser and Mililani as like the golden children, and then West Side is like, well, we just know that the West Side's not the same. I don't think that's the best way to do it. We should have competition. Let's all try to be the best, and let's let the parents decide with their vouchers, with school choice, of where their kids go. So we've talked about transportation.
That's a lot,
We've
yeah.
talked about education. We've talked about crime. We've talked about housing. What else should we talk about?
Well, it's funny because now I feel like here's my pen. I was like, I should have taken notes as you were talking because I have questions for each topic.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but yeah, let's break it down then. So just because education was your last one, don't you think it's unique? Obviously, the way our structure of our Department of Education is very different from the continent, right? Where people are actively paying in their districts to the school system, whereas ours is statewide, like it's a state-run system, right? So that creates very unique challenges for our DOE. And as a parent myself, when you're thinking about where to send your children, I feel like a lot of it does come down to how far are you willing to drive, and will that match up with, your schedule as a worker, especially for a lot of our parents who are working parents who, may not have the luxury of having to take their kids cross town, like, for example, if they live in your district, but they want to send their children to a better, if we implemented like a competitive situation, they're like, oh, this school is so much better, I'm going to send them to that school over there. But who's going to take them? The transportation issue, right? Like, even if they really wanted to take their kids to that better competitive school, they can't, because who's going to provide the childcare or the transportation for that? Just as me listening to what you were saying, how would you address those types of concerns, for example, for parents like that? Yeah.
In dual income households where mom and dad are both working, sometimes they could ask auntie or uncle or grandma and grandpa to do that, or they could, there's transportation services like buses and Ubers where they could have the child be escorted that way.
Mm-hmm. So it's like having to, if you really had the will, there's like other ways to find.
Well, kids already have to get transported from the house to the school, and so now we're just changing the school location. Maybe it's 3 miles, maybe it's 10 miles, but if the parent's desire is, I want my child to have a higher GPA, a higher, safer environment, and a more successful driven environment, I could break down the grading system of certain of the West Side schools of basically like you basically have to get at least 20% to pass. So you could basically, option A, B, or C, choose any option and still pass the exam. That's what one of the teachers told me. That's not a culture of success and try your hardest. That's a culture of let's just get everybody through. So again, thank you to all of our teachers who are teaching. But at
I
the
like
same
the disclaimer.
time, we can do better.
Well, and it is such a, again, it's such a huge, nuanced, complex issue, right? Our DOE system. So, but you feel like this spirit of competition is one way to resolve some of these issues that we have in the system.
So I'm just one legislator out of 76, and it's really hard to snap our fingers and create a culture amongst all the families to instill within their kids, try your hardest because school is really important, and then you can be more successful and productive in your future. So other ways to do that is to get those kids that maybe aren't as driven in more success-driven environments, and then their community starts to shape you. Wow, all the other students are trying their hardest and the teachers wants me to try their hardest? Okay, I'll do that. Versus I'm a student that doesn't care, all my classmates don't care, and my teacher has accepted the fact that we all don't care.
Oh no. To be fair, educators are also challenged here, right?
Yes,
the
very, very challenged.
Yeah, when you talk about the larger issue of pay for our educators, right? I think maybe that kind of can be very frustrating and draining, especially with the other challenges that they deal with, not just academically, but emotionally and culturally when they're teaching students, right? In our islands, there's such a diverse cross-section of people in our public school system. So, but yeah, we're not going to resolve that in a session. But these are the discussions these are the kinds of discussions we want to have, right? So that's one. Now going back to, now I have to go back. What was the first one? The transportation one. Oh, you mentioned rail. So there are a lot of people who will agree with you. They are not proponents of rail, but it's here. It's been done, and it did take billions of dollars to do and a lot of years to do. And there's people that are just saying, it's sunk costs. And your proposal for this one to find alternative ways of, remind us again about the one that you were, that particular one.
We talked about more lanes. We talked about expanding the bus services. We talked about the zipper lane, and we can also incorporate carpooling and less work days. So
what's the challenge for implementing those types? Those seem kind of straightforward.
Thank you.
You proposed them last year.
Yes. So we have a culture at the Capitol that promotes groupthink, and so if you're part of the popular groupthink, the majority caucus, your bills will pass. And within that, a group of left-leaning Democrats, if you're amongst the popular, more play-along to get-along group, then your bills will pass. But there's fringe majority members that their bills don't pass because they're on the fringe side. They're too outspoken, or their ideas are too radical, or maybe
you fall under that.
No, I'm on the right. So basically everybody on the right, their bills don't pass, with the exception of some that basically, if you're liked by a lot of people and you don't speak out against the system, then some of your bills that have less of a significant impact on the state, those bills will pass. When it's not the conversation of left versus right, it's just a non argumentative issue. So if you come from the right, and if you come from a perspective that says there's a lot of corruption going on here, let's fix this, your bills won't pass. Yeah, it's a sad system, but there's hope in that we can make change tomorrow.
You say it with such a straight face. I was like...
I've been doing this for 4 years. What other perspective should you have?
Well, I appreciate this perspective. And these are kind of the discussions we want to have, is this transparency around why things that seem very common sense, that don't seem to cost a lot. I would think, but then again, I haven't done the research. You have.
The perspective of it costs a lot doesn't matter to my legislators. Ideas of billions and millions are just swipes of the pen, and then it becomes a line item in the budget that never gets appropriated to a contractor because someone's cousin hasn't made a deal yet.
Oh my goodness. How do you not be jaded in this environment?
Well, I don't know if I'm coming across as jaded or not, but there's a lot to be thankful for and grateful for, and we can try to push it, try to push past it and move forward.